So the first week of the Major 3 online qualifiers just ended, and the COD League looks entirely different than it did last Major. There's been a lot of roster changes and some changes to the map pool, and Major 3 is set to be a really entertaining one because it's been a wild last couple weeks, so let's get right into it. So to start, I want to talk about Boston Breach's roster changes after Major 2. They did a really good job hosting the Major 1 LAN tournament, but unfortunately they didn't stick around for very long because they got first rounded, and the same thing happened at the Major 2 tournament. 2 top 12 finishes on LAN definitely called for a team change. Apparently from people around the league, the team didn't want to play with Snoopy. They thought he wasn't ready for the league. He was allegedly forgetting hardpoint spawns, forgetting rotations. This is only a 1-year league, so if teams want to make changes, they have to make them now. It's really now or never. And Boston made arguably one of the biggest changes after Major 2. Asim and Slasher were released from the team, as well as their coach B-Sport Josh, with Beans and Pentagram being picked up in their place. This roster change led to a pretty funny back and forth between Sensor and Slasher.
Welcome in, Douglas.
Yo, guys, look, I think Austin needs clarity, bro. I'm just like you, Austin. I hate lack of transparency. I can't stand lack of transparency.
Let's get transparent then.
The conflict of interest needs to be unified. So at this point, obviously big changes are happening, and there's coaching changes, there's roster changes, there's player changes, and there's a lot of shit that's going down, and unfortunately, people got to get cut. That's just the way it is. Our coaching staff, our general manager, myself, the coaches that are on the team now, the ownership, the president of the team all felt the same way about these things. So I don't know where you feel this is where you feel about things, but moving forward, this is the way the organization wants to run things. I could sit here and on Slasher all day long for him doing things in controls, and Asim for this, and Priesta for this, but dude, doing that isn't going to make the team better in any way.
You couldn't do that. You don't know how to play the game yourself. Shut up, bro. You're just on some fucking PR tirade or something. Like, I don't know what you say. Oh, I'm helping. I don't have a title. Oh, but I'm helping. Oh, but I don't have a title. Like, bro, what the fuck are you even saying, bro?
I mean, I feel bad for Asim and Slasher both, but I can't say that I'm not surprised because when Sensor brought this kid into the league last year, he was saying he's going to be the next Scump. I don't know if he's like shadow GMing or what the case is. He seems to have some say in what's going on in the org. So when push came to shove, Boston decided Snoopy was their guy. This is the guy they want to build around, and they needed people to do so, and they felt that Beans and Pentagram were the 2 people to do so. Beans is an AR player who played for Boston Breach last year, and he actually played really well. Surprised he didn't get a spot in the league going into this year, but people know him for his energy and his loud personality, and he has a little ongoing feud with Gunless that should create a pretty good storyline when they match up against Seattle in a few weeks. So I'm glad he's getting his shot to get back in the league and make some things happen for this Boston team. But Pentagram is somebody who hasn't got his shot in the league until now, and he's been grinding away in challengers for years now, even playing on Boston Academy with Sensor. And when MW3 came out, he kept his head down and kept on grinding, and it seems like it's paid off for him. He'll be an SMG duo with Snoopy, and they're gonna have to find some ways to put things together because as it stands right now, Boston Breach is in 12th place in the regular season. And after the first week of the online qualifiers, they actually lost their first match against Miami Heretics. But I'm not gonna say too much off of, one match. I consider the matches last weekend like warm-ups for the rest of the qualifier. There's new maps and everything, so the teams are going to take some time to get put together, but they don't have a lot of time left, so hopefully Boston can put things together and make a better showing at LAN than they did in the last 2 majors. Like I said, they're currently at 12th place, sitting behind LA Thieves, who also made a roster change right after Major 2. They've made a few roster changes this season, and I'm thinking this is probably going to be their final roster for the rest of the season unless they make one more change after Major 3. But LA Thieves went 0-2 at the Major 2 LAN tournament, placing top 12, and it was clear they needed a team change if they want to make COD champs. So what LAT decided to do was revert their change from the last major. Remember, they sent Joe Deceives down to challengers to get some more reps in, and Afro was the one that they decided to keep. But during the Major 2 LAN event, he was struggling in the respawn game modes, just getting kills on the map and putting in damage. So LAT decided, well, I'm just going to let them explain it.
I mean, I love the guy. Great. He was a great teammate. Very good player. Grinded a fucking shit ton. Shit happens.
What up, Marcus?
So Afro is in Challengers, and now the new team is Ghosty, Kremp, Joe Deceives, and Nasty. It's going to be hard for them to make that champs qualification, but they certainly have the talent to make things happen. They're currently in 11th place with 70 CDL points, and just 5 points ahead of them is the Carolina Royal Ravens. Another team that I'm really excited to see going forward is the team right in front of the Ravens. In 9th place with 80 CDL points in the regular season is the Seattle Surge, who made a major roster change after Major 2. There's been a lot of controversy around this team since the league started. After Major 1, Illy was released from the team for no reason. The team never said anything about what happened with his whole situation on stage, and the whole community was confused because Illy disappeared from the internet. But just a few days before Major 3 started, on April 9th, the Seattle Surge announced that they were releasing Illy off of their roster, and Illy came back to Twitter and said, "That probably does it for me this year. Felt like I was final as well. It is what it is." But Seattle also announced that they were releasing Arcides off of their roster, a player who has been struggling since he joined LAG at the beginning of MW2, and this year he has been their worst player. And I said it in the last video, but the team morale of Seattle Surge just seemed like it was at an all-time low, and a roster change was just bound to happen within the next few weeks. So Seattle was looking to find a replacement for Arcides, and they finally gave a Challengers player a shot in the league. It is very hard to become a pro Call of Duty player. Just getting into the COD League is incredibly difficult for a lot of these Challengers, people who have been grinding for years, and that's the case for a lot of people down in Challengers, but it's not the case for my boy 04.
Oh,
Because 04's first competitive COD event was in 2022. He did it in just about 2 years, maybe even a little less, which is unheard of. So you definitely got to tip your cap to 04 because that is a really cool accomplishment. He came up in the S&D scene, and he's kind of a mysterious player right now. I don't know too much about him, but what I do know is that he was an S&D player. Gunless Classic and DAC took a chance on him going into the Miami Challengers event, and they ended up winning the whole thing. I don't know how much he's going to move the needle for this team. The team needs more than just one roster change to be a good team. But for Seattle Surge, they're really close to qualifying for champs right now, but the race is really tight for the AC. 1 or 2 matches could change how the whole entire standings look. But as it stands right now, the Seattle Surge are 7-13 in the regular season, and they're going into Major 3 with Hook, Brezzy, Abuza, and 04. Seattle Surge is tied for 8th place right now with the Miami Heretics, the hometown team from the last tournament, a team that has not won a map on LAN. They are currently 8-11 right now, and also made a roster change along with the rest of the teams. Miami announced that they were releasing Eric Boom and Real, a player who was supposed to play for the Carolina Royal Ravens at the beginning of the season, but he couldn't get his visa sorted out, so he was released from the team without getting the proper chance to play. But thankfully, he was able to get his visa situation situated, and he has officially joined the Miami Heretics. He had the best performance and won match MVP for the Miami Heretics when they beat Boston Breach last weekend. I think the real test is going to come whenever LAN rolls around, because this team has been notoriously bad on LAN. But as it stands, they're qualified for champs right now, so we'll see if they can hold on to that spot. But the 2 final teams that made roster changes are sitting in the middle of the pack right now at 5 and 6. At the 6th seed with 100 CDL points, the Minnesota Rocker decided to make a roster change, dropping Awakening and Vivid. They haven't had a terrible season, but they could do much better, and it seems that the org felt that way as well. They have a really promising star in Linz, and Accuracy seems to be serving as the vet, who played pretty well at the beginning of this season, and Rocker decided to pair them with Standy and Gunless. Gunless played alongside 04 during the Miami Challengers event, and he won it all, like I said before. He was in the COD League a few years ago, and even played on the Chicago Huntsmen with Scump, but he's been out of the league for a few years, just grinding away in Challengers. And after winning that Challengers event, he definitely put his name on the map, and that's when Rocker decided to pick him up, along with Standy, another Challengers player who I've talked about a decent amount on this channel. I actually have a whole video on Standy's COD career to this point, but he started the season out with the Vegas Legion, but then was dropped shortly after Major 1, and this ended up working out for Legion because they picked up Geo, and he's been frying. Unfortunately, they had a pretty terrible schedule last weekend, to say the least. They matched up against Atlanta FaZe, and then they matched up against NY ISL, some of the best teams in the game right now. So they're starting off the Major 3 qualifier 0-2, but they have a better schedule coming up. They're going to play Boston Breach, LAG, LA Thieves, Ultra, and then Ravens. So I think their schedule is going to be a little bit easier going forward. I am really glad that Gunless got his spot back in the league, and hopefully he'll make the most of it. The final team that made a roster change within like the last 2 or 3 days was Vegas Legion. It seemed that they were going to double down on Purge at first, but they didn't. ASIM is taking the spot of Purge. Purge had a pretty tough go around at the beginning of the season, but he started to turn things around going into Major 2, and Vegas Legion was pretty solid in the middle of the pack. I know they want to compete with the higher teams in the bracket, and Purge was their weak link. I think they could have continued to work with him, but the season is so short that if you want to make a change, you got to make it now. So that's what they did. They picked up ASIM, who was just released from Boston, but now he's back in the league. You know, my boy Zuma hooked him up, so things are looking good for ASIM right now. But Vegas Legion are 1-1 in the Major 3 qualifier, but they haven't played with ASIM yet. So we'll see how they play with ASIM going forward and see if Attach can lead this squad to the CDL Championship. And the other teams that didn't make roster changes were LAG and Royal Ravens, and then the top 4, but they weren't going to make a change anyways. I'm surprised LAG didn't make a change. They play really well on LAN together, but they always struggle online, and if they continue struggling online, they're not going to make COD champs. And for Carolina's sake, I hope that they make a change. They have good team chemistry. I'm a fan of what they've put together, but the results just aren't there. I just want to see Clayster do good in one of his final years in the COD League, you know? If they make a roster change, I would think it would be Fellow that they would make the change for. But at the same time, at that point, if you're just going to change one person, I don't even know if that does enough. I know they're also getting a team house together. It could end up working out for them if they get this team house and start playing better. Only time will tell with this squad, but that has been all of the roster changes for Major 3. The COD League is looking so much different than it did just a few weeks ago. The game is also looking a little different now, because if you watched last weekend, you noticed that there were a few new maps in the map pool. To start, Invasion Hardpoint was removed, Skid Row Hardpoint was removed, and Terminal S&D was removed, and they added Vista Hardpoint, 6-star Hardpoint, and 6-star S&D. I think 6-star and Vista are really fun maps to watch, especially the 6-star Pool Hill. I know that some people don't like it. I think it's really entertaining watching them swim around and just fight each other in the water. It just adds something new and entertaining to watching the game. I know it's different, but different isn't always bad. But the Vista and 6-star changes were good changes in my opinion. But something that wasn't a good change for the COD League was that there is no Major 4 event in Carolina. The Major 4 LAN event has been canceled in North Carolina, and it will now be held in Burbank, California with no live audience. This is just a dagger because the Major 4 LAN event may be an event where some teams are trying to qualify for champs, and the stakes could be really high around that time. And to have no live audience takes away from the entire experience. You know, I hate to be the bearer of bad news and all. LAN Call of Duty beats online COD every time in my opinion, so it sucks that there's not going to be a true LAN experience this time around. However, Major 3 is going to be hosted in Toronto. It should be a really fire event. All I want is Atlanta FaZe versus Toronto Ultra. But this is everything you need to know about Major 3 Rostermania. Just made the storylines so much more interesting, and I'm excited for the next few weeks of COD. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, feel free to like, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, peace.